Thank you. Vice Chair, do you want me to go ahead and begin with the housekeeping remarks?
Sure, please go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Chair. Good morning, everyone. Thank you for participating in our administrative committee meeting this morning. We have two formats for participation. One is the Zoom web application as well as teleconference. Please silence your other communication devices such as your cell or desk phone so there aren't any disruptions during the meeting. And during the meeting, all of the participants on Zoom, except for board members and South Coast AQMD staff, will be placed on mute by the host, and that means you will not be able to manually mute or unmute your lines yourself. You have to do it manually, I'm sorry. Also want to make sure that for the video instructions, for those on Zoom, if you'd like to make public comment on the Zoom screen, please click on the raise hand button at the bottom of the screen. If you're using Zoom on your smartphone, please tap the raise your hand button also on the bottom of the screen. For those calling in on the phone line only, you can dial *9 on your keypad to signal that you would like to comment, and your name will be called when it's your turn to comment, and the host will unmute your line automatically. Speakers may be limited to a total of 3 minutes for the entirety of the consent calendar, and 3 minutes for each of the other agenda items. I apologize, wrong talking points. Anyway, a countdown timer will be displayed on the screen for each public comment, and please note that you can hang up and leave Zoom at any time. And with that, I'll conclude my comments and turn it back to you, Vice Chair.
Very good, thank you very much. I'll go ahead and get the meeting started, and if for some reason you do lose connection with me, Judith, if you want to go ahead and continue on, I hope we can do that. I don't know if we'll have quorum without me, but I should be able to reconnect. I'm on a bit of a weak connection right now, but
okay, sure. Yeah,
hopefully it'll stabilize and it'll be okay. But with that, we'll go into the first item. The discussion item is the board member concerns. Any board members, any of my fellow board members have any concerns or comments?
Nothing.
No, Vice Chair.
No.
Mr. Vice Chair, if you're concerned about possibly losing service, I could suggest that we go to the action items first.
Okay. Well, first, I guess, do we need to do a roll call?
Yeah, let's do that, and then maybe go to the action items. Just
will do.
Vice Chair Benoit.
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Caccioti.
Here.
Councilmember Mitchell.
Here.
Dr. Berg, absent.
Very good. With that, thank you, Bay, for that recommendation. We'll go ahead and go to item 11, the transfer of monies from general fund to the Health Effects Research Fund. Sujata, go ahead.
Sujata, you're on mute and video lockout.
She's thinking, I'm later on the agenda. What's going on?
There she goes.
I'm sorry. Suddenly my screen went to another thing. Apologize.
That's okay.
Good morning, Vice Chair Benoit and members of the committee. Sujata Jain, Chief Financial Officer. So this item is to request approval to transfer from the undesignated general fund balance to the Health Effects Research Fund amount of $435,636. This amount comes about due to board policy based on a formula that is 20% above $4 million of penalties needs to be transferred to this fund on a fiscal year basis. However, in September, the board redirected to use some of that money for the WAM program, $1 million, and $100,000 each for the EJ outreach and for the CAPES program. So we are deducting the 1.2 million from the balance, which the formula had generated 1,636,000. So if we take out the 1.2 million, this is the balance that we are requesting to be transferred. And we'll be happy to answer any questions on that.
Very good. Any comments or questions? Michael, go ahead.
Thank you, Vice Chair. I support this this item. I was just curious. I was doing some math last night trying to add up our total penalty funds. Would those be like around 12.1 million or 12.2 million? Am I correct? Or
yeah, you're absolutely right. It's $12,178,184.
I came up with $180. I was close. Thank you.
Yes.
I do have a question, Chair.
Sure, go right ahead.
This is the BP ARCO settlement fund. And please remind me what we do with the first 4 million. Is that prescribed for certain mitigation?
Actually, Mayor Pro Tem Mitchell, this money does not go into the BPRCO fund. It goes into the Health Effects Research Fund, and it's coming from the general fund penalties.
Okay,
It was originally a long time ago set up where BPRCO might have given some money to the Health Effects Research Fund. But now it's based on the penalties that come in the general fund. And the 4 million is actually, we budget 5 million in our budget for penalties. But maybe a long time ago, we budgeted 4 or 5, I don't know. But this is the way the formula was structured.
I see. Okay, it came out of the BP ARCO fund, but that's not,
Yeah.
and that's what we still call it, but that's not what it really is.
Yeah, no.
Okay.
It's just giving some background on that.
Yes, okay, got it, understand. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Any public comment on this item?
I'll move the staff recommendation.
Second?
Very good. I have a motion and a second. Clerk, go ahead and call the roll.
Vice Chair Benoit,
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Cacciodi,
Yes.
Councilmember Mitchell,
Yes,
Dr. Berg absent. Motion passes 3-0, 1 absence.
Very good. With that, we'll go on to item number 12, the appropriate the funds for the amend the existing contract for consultant services for the Why Healthy Air Matters program. Derek, go right ahead.
You, Vice Chair. On September 4th, if you recall, the governing board approved the expansion of the WAM program. The board letter back in September of this year did not accurately identify all of the required appropriations to fund the program. In particular, the BP ARCO funds in the amount of $1 million to be spread over years 2 and 3 for this program were inadvertently omitted from the recommended actions. Staff recommends a transfer of the BP ARCO funds to fully fund the WAM program through September of 2023. Staff respectfully requests support for this proposal. Happy to
Very
answer
good. Any questions from my board member colleagues?
I just have a comment.
Go ahead.
And when I have mentioned this program, when I'm out doing panels, the city representatives that I mention it to are very interested in it. So I have had feedback to Derek on a couple of occasions about, a city that I have contacted that's interested in it. So I think it's been very well received and has been a very successful program. Would you comment on that, Derek?
Sure. Thank you, Vice Mayor Mitchell. Yes, there's been unfortunately last year was COVID hit, but this year we got some good feedback, and we have got some what do you call those commitments from the school districts for this program to get in there. This year we'll have about 367 schools or classes that we'll be in. But getting back to your question about the schools that you had recommended, we did reach out to them and let them know. And they were, I don't recall if they've actually gotten back to us that they want us in their schools, but I'll make sure that we follow up on that, and we'll get back to you on those schools that you had mentioned.
Hey, Derek, could you also comment a little bit on the ease by which the virtual learning has been accepted by the schools and how much they like that and how it's really been, I think, an asset in terms of enhancing the popularity of the program?
Absolutely. So as Wayne mentioned, yes, we are doing virtual this year, this school year, and maybe next school year we'll do a combination of virtual and in class. But the teachers so far, they're teaching virtual, but they've gladly accepted a virtual type of environment. We're also producing, as was part of the requirement for the contract, we're producing videos that the teachers can also show in the classrooms. As for us staff members going out and teaching it virtually this year, we do have some schools that have requested us and others are willing to do it on their own. But again, getting back to, the success of this, it's been very well received, and it's a good opportunity for not only for the kids to learn about air quality, but also giving the teachers an opportunity to teach something they typically didn't teach during the school year. So all around, it's been very successful.
Very good. Councilmember Cattro, you had a question too? Go ahead.
You're muted.
Thanks, Judy.
There you go.
Eric, if a school is interested and wants to get involved, do we still have opportunities for other schools to get involved and participate?
Absolutely. So, this year, like I said, it's 367 classrooms. And, we still have a ways to go. So if there are schools that you want us to reach out to, we're more than happy to do that. We do have criteria that we set up, but what we're finding out is that some of the schools that are in criteria 1 and 2, which is AB 617, and then criteria 2 is AB 2588, communities, not all of them want it. So it opens up opportunities for other schools outside of those areas to get the program. I know that specifically in your area, we're reaching out to a school in La Puente.
Good.
We're waiting to hear back from them as to whether they want it in their school. But we're spreading it out amongst all the counties and making sure that each county and each region has their fair share in program.
That's good. Keep me abreast of that, because La Puente Hacienda is the largest school district in the San Gabriel Valley. And there's a couple other ones I've talked to may be interested, but who would I contact? You, Derek, to contact them? Or
Yes, that'd be great.
Thank you. Thank you, Vice Chair.
Thank you.
Very good. All right, do we have any public comment on this item? Not seeing any hands raised.
Move approval?
I'll
All right,
second.
I have a motion and a second. Will the clerk go ahead and call the roll?
Caciotti,
Yes.
Councilmember Mitchell, sorry, Mayor.
Yes.
Vice Chair Benoit,
Yes.
Dr. Burke, absent. Motion passes 3-0, 1 absence.
Very good. We'll go on to item 13, the execute a sole source contract for the planning organization of facilitating AQMD's Martin Luther King Day and Cesar Chavez Day. Derek, again, go right ahead.
Thank you, Vice Chair. The current contract for the planning and organizing of the Martin Luther King Day of Remembrance and the Cesar Chavez event expires in September of this year. This is an ongoing year-round program where we're doing outreach, trying to get venues, trying to get speakers. And so what we want to do is we want to go ahead and do a sole source contract for Lee Andrews Group, who's been doing this essentially for the last 5 years for the district. It's been very successful. They already know the programs. They know what we're looking for. So it's, they have a unique ability to, know exactly what we're looking for. So we don't have to start all over again with a new organization to run the program and to reach out to the different venues and speakers. So we're asking that this contract be extended for an additional 3 years through 2024, and for an amount of $450,000. It's basically $150,000 per year. And we're asking for staff is requesting the board approve this. Thank you.
All right. Any board member comments, questions on this one?
Question?
Go ahead, Michael.
Thank you, Vice Chair.
Mhm.
Derek, I remember years ago, we planned our first Clean Air Car Show in South Pasadena about the time Santa Monica did. It took a lot of planning and effort. How much does the district participate in the planning and effort of this? Your program, local government?
Sure. So we are actively involved in it. The contractor has to, we're meeting with them, if I recall correctly, on at least twice a month, getting updates from them, and getting approvals. We give them approvals on things, but we're actively involved in it every month of the year. I think that's what your question is, right?
It is, Ken. I don't want you doing I don't want your office and your staff taking a laboring oar if they're getting that much
No.
money per year. You're not right.
No, we're not. We're, like I said, they're doing all the legwork for us, and they just
Okay.
come back to us for approvals. But there's times when we actually do go out and take a look at the venues. This year, we're not going to have a venue. We're going to do it virtually. But I
Okay.
can tell you right now, in 2022 and forward, as long as the vaccine is readily available, we're going to bring them back to in person.
Thank you. That's it.
Very good.
I'll move approval of the item.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Is there any public comment on this item? Not seeing any hands raised. Would the clerk go ahead and call the roll?
Mayor Pro Tem Caccioti,
Yes.
Councilmember Mitchell,
Yes.
Vice Chair Benoit,
Yes.
Dr. Burke absent. Motion passes 3-0, 1 absence.
Very good. All right, with that, we'll go back to the beginning of our agenda. Item number 2, the Chairman Report of Travel. I take it there's no travel to be reported, correct?
Correct.
Wayne? All right. And no out of country travel?
No out of country travel either, sir.
Figured so. All right. Item number 4, the January Governing Board meeting agenda. Anyone have any questions or comments on the meeting agenda as it's presented here?
I do, very quick.
January.
I'm looking for it though right now. Just a second.
Sure.
It's a positive one. It's a item, I'm not sure, it's 11-147. The transfer of funds and amend contracts for commercial electric, lawn and gardening equipment, incentive and exchange program. I want to thank staff, Wayne, and everyone for getting that on there, and just maybe some questions. This is great. That's our program that Judith, we came to your city.
Right.
We're out there. We're right now actively working in Compton. And I was out there a few weeks ago. You saw the pictures. Compton's very interested, and I think this is great because we're running low on funds. I've talked to Dan May, the American Green Zone Alliance. If this, I think it's 350,000. If that were to go out, because we're going to have a lot more time in the next month to push this program and get out to my cities. May even go out to Wildomar with Ben and try to push his city. But
I don't know if you remember, we actually got I think $100,000 grant for our city for our parks and our cemetery district. So
Really?
We're pretty much all electric there, and they love it. Yep, absolutely love it. So we're doing
Great.
good. But there's other agencies around me we can go tour though. So absolutely.
Great. It's great, Ben. That's great, Ben. I didn't know that. That's great. So Wayne, if we find out in say 3 or 4 months, I know this is for a quarter or so, if this money starts dwindling out, do we have any sources where we could also get some money? I know, for example, my city, we're now looking at our climate action plan. I know a lot of cities will be, and maybe this might be one of their components. They say, let's transfer our lawn maintenance to electric. Where can we get possible money if the program's another success this year?
Well, there's still the potential, and I'm going to make sure through Bay and Barbara that this is correct, on the BPRCO settlement that we could tap some of those funds. Some of the other aspect would be some of the other penalty funds that are above and beyond the allocations. That's also open to the board for their discretion. Any other funds generally tend to have strict requirements, whether they're NOx emission reductions or the like. In this particular case, I imagine we would be getting some of those, so there might be some availability from other funds. I'm not sure. I think 1111 on the heaters, we tend to use that on rebates for the heaters, but that's also for NOx reductions as well, as I understand. Sujata, are there any other funds that might be available that you would recall?
If you don't know on the top of your head, that's fine. I was just in the future, just in the event that this does become successful, and I'm seeing more interest from cities, like when I was in Irwindale, Glendora, there seems to be a little more interest now. I don't know, Judy, whatever happened with your city, I wasn't sure.
There's a bit of controversy because generally they don't want to impose a requirement of this type, but they want to introduce it so that people have the option of choosing this kind of equipment. And then as people get used to it and understand how it operates, and that there's no problem with battery operated, and recharging, then move move into it a little more deeply. So that's kind of where they are.
Okay.
So Mayor Pro Tem, what I would suggest, Caccioti, is that we continue to look for funds in this interim period. We can apply for some additional TAG grants. I know that's where we've got some of the original funding.
Right.
And if the money runs out, then we'll be able to come back to you with some recommendations.
Great.
And in the meantime, we'll still go ahead and apply for those TAG funds.
Great, a great idea. And Wayne, as you know, with the American Green Zone Alliance, I've been out there with Dan Mabe. If we can, without his outreach, as Judith just mentioned, I've seen this whenever I've gone to the cities. Ben might have seen this. I found this in South Pass when he introduced this, boy, many years ago. And we converted as Judith said, the pushback from, it's like when all of us had to learn, whether it's computers or something new, there's a reluctance or a pushback. And especially in the law, I did that as a kid in high school. And you could just see these guys have been there for 20, 30 years. They don't want to change. I'm used to gas. I'm used to putting it in, oil, do it. Unless you get somebody out there, like when I was in Irwindale, we got, you saw the picture, about 15, 18 guys and women. And they started touching it. They said, we showed them. And believe me, the questions they threw at me and Dan, it was probably 30 questions. How long does this work? How long is it going to last? Does it cut this type of grass? St. Augustine, does it cut that? Our staff, I don't expect them to learn that detail. So if we can, Wayne, as you did before, somehow incorporate Dan into this, because without that tie-in, boots on the ground, and Judith said, they're going to fight you. I fought our city, our public works. I fought the contractor. I'm still fighting the contractor. Anytime he gets a chance, I go out to the park. He's trying to use those gas mowers, and I threatened to take away the contract. He right away jumps, oh, okay, we had a problem with the electric lawnmower. We're sorry. So it's if we can do that, Wayne, it'd be a big help.
I will do my best, Mayor Pro Tem.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
All right. Any other comments or questions on the agenda for January? All right. We'll go ahead and move on to item number 5, the board assistants or any board assistant contract changes, Wayne?
Not at this time, sir.
All right. All right. Our update on the inclusion, diversity, and equity efforts. Wayne, go right ahead.
Thanks. I think we have some slides coming up. Next slide, please. So a number of us took the Government Alliance for Racial and Equity training recently, and it was a very interesting course because it encompassed people from all across the United States. And there were actually a number of air agencies, Puget Sound for one, that we're actually following up with to look at some of the programs that they're doing. So it was a really good opportunity to hear what other organizations are doing, some of the challenges that they faced, and how we can really look to GARE itself as well as others for support as we continue to implement and roll out these programs. With regards to the DEI officer, I know we had shared last time that we had put out the job announcement. Since that time, we've received over 80 applications. And in fact, we've already started the review of those resumes. We've got applications from literally all across the United States. And I would say that, they reflect academia, they reflect government, they reflect private parties, institutions. And the thing I think that we're finding is that there hasn't been people with a lot of experience, like extensive experience. This is really a relatively new area of focus. And so we tend to see a lot of the people in either government or in academia. And so in some sense, that's encouraging since we're government. And in many ways, I think we are like academia. So we're looking over those applications. We will begin interviews within the next week, possibly 2. Our goal still is to have a decision made and bringing somebody in by the end of January. Next slide. You've also learned about our idea panel, representative employees throughout the agency. We had an opportunity within the last 2 weeks, I believe, to brief the entire senior staff executive council on their efforts. And in part, one of the things that they've done is they've really developed a consensus-based approach. which is quite remarkable when you think about all the items and issues that we have to tackle and the issues, in fact, that they're tackling. So understanding what does diversity and what does equity and all of these things mean was one of the first biggest challenges. They've also defined for themselves how they intend to operate. What's the length of a term, for instance, to the panel itself? What are some of the areas in which they'd like to see additional work, for instance, through subcommittees and the like? They've also provided us with some initial recommendations for some of the communications and focus areas. But what I want to do is I want to make sure that we have the DEI officer on board so that we don't get out too far in advance and we have some things where perhaps they could have gone more smoothly had we waited a bit. So we're continuing to work on that aspect. I would say that with regards to the idea panel, we also recently had a lunch and learn session, and we had over 100 employees participate in that lunch and learn session. And it was talking about, what their efforts are, what they hope to accomplish, and where they see their efforts of focus. Let's go to the next slide, please. So as I said, we're going to be interviewing candidates over the next few weeks. We're also looking at bringing on additional speakers and training. And we hope to begin 2021 very strong by having our DEI officer on board, and as well as tackling these events through information and through sharing of culture and celebration. And that's not to take away from the seriousness of which we all look at these matters, right? I don't want to diminish the seriousness in any way by celebrating different cultures, whether it's Black History Month or whether it's Latinx history or whatever the case may be. We want to make sure that we're enhancing awareness and education amongst all of us with an eye toward those sensitivity. So those are the things that we're working on. I think that's the last slide. Next one. Yeah, in summary, I would say that with regards to the idea panel, we're continuing to hear their thoughts, get their recommendations. I look forward to better and closer communication once we have the DEI officer on board with our idea panel and our entire senior team. And as we will also be providing monthly updates to the administrative committee. And I would say that one of the other aspects that we were looking forward to is the Hispanic Heritage Month as well. So many things that are going on, but happy to answer any questions in case you have any.
Very good. Board members, comments, questions?
I do have a question. You have 80 applicants for the DEI, and you have a panel that is going to screen those to a certain number. Can you kind of outline your process, how you're going to address that?
So we have a job recruiter who we put out, and he actually has gone through and made some recommendations to us. And I would say that right now there's a panel of 4 senior staff, including myself. And we went through the first cut, if you will, actually the last couple of days where we were trying to identify who we want to at least have interviewed that perhaps hadn't been identified by the recruiter. I would say there were probably about 5 or 6 additional people that we had identified that we wanted to at least be interviewed for the process. And based on that interview process, it'll now come to the senior staff that I referenced earlier, including myself. As you can imagine, the idea panel also wants to engage in some of this. The idea panel itself represents employees across the spectrum of management and staff positions. So one of the things that we're trying to grapple with is where is it appropriate? How many people perhaps might be allowed to participate on that? Or some of the questions that we've had is maybe we sort of get it down to a pool, but we're still debating this and we hope to finalize how that will play out because there's other concerns that we have to be considered of, such as privacy and the like. So these are all things that we're considering, but once we have all of that, then hopefully it'll get down to me and I'll make a decision. But I know that the board asked that Dr. Burke also be involved in some of this. So we will keep him as apprised as we start going through the interview process.
Yeah, I think it's important that you have some diversity on the panel that makes the decisions. I say that because I think there's a lot of nuances when we look at interracial relationships and I think it's important to have that perspective, that you're hearing the other voices and you're hearing their perspective. So I'm sure you're doing that. Sounds like you're including your idea panel, and of course, Dr. Burke should be on there because he understands these issues very well.
Absolutely. And I assure you, we are a diverse panel.
Good.
Be participating as well, Mayor Mitchell.
Oh, good. Okay. Good.
Very good.
Ben?
Yep, go ahead, Michael.
Thanks, Vice Chair. Wayne, just asking about that class that the committee took, the Advancing Racial Equity Role of Government, 6 hours. As I heard you talk about that, I was considering maybe at our local level, should I have my city manager, some of our executive staff take it, or staff, all staff? What was it beneficial? What was your thoughts on it?
I think it was beneficial. It was interesting because what they did was they sort of broke you out after they gave, a topic, right? So they would talk about how do you address equity, for example. And then they would say, okay, we're going to break you all up now. And then by random, they would put you into another group. And so in a few minutes time, you had to introduce yourself to other members of this group, other people from across the United States, talk about your program, what you're doing, and then sort of come up with a game plan to present a summary to the larger group that they brought you back. So it was a lot of interaction with people. And that's where we were saying that we met some of the staff from the Puget Sound Air Quality Branch up in Washington. And they were doing things that we thought were interesting. So we're going to actually reach out to them. So I do think it's a good opportunity to hear about what's going on elsewhere in the nation. And I think that it really gives you an opportunity to sort of pick and choose what you think is right and what you're doing. Because in some areas, you're going to find you're actually doing a lot more than others. And, for us, one of the things that we're always asking ourselves is, it's not just about having a program. It's not just about checking the box, right? It's about making on the ground results. So what does that really look like? And so that's part of what we're trying to go through and understand. I think that we as an organization, when you look at our statistics, we've talked about this before, we are a fairly close reflection of the community. Now, can we do better? Absolutely. And for us to have gone through the metrics and to understand those, it gives us an idea of where we need to go. But we have hard metrics that we can actually say, this is what we're doing. And I want to be sensitive to having the metrics in place, as opposed to saying we have a program in place, yet when you look at our organization, we lack diversity. And so I'm very happy to say we are a diverse organization. Clearly, there's areas for opportunity. Having the metrics lets us focus on that. And then having the ability to interact with GARE gives us ideas on how others have implemented and just other topics. So in short, yes, have them take the class and go through it.
Well, is there a cost for it? Is it free or?
No, there is a cost.
You have to be a member of the GARE organization in order to take this particular training class, but there are probably other training courses that would be applicable.
But the cost as a member, it's not that much. Is that right, Jill?
I'd have to go back and check on that. I'm not sure. I'll have to go back and check.
I think it's less than 10,000.
Okay. And GARE again stood for Government on Racial Government
Alliance
for Racial Equity.
Racial equity.
Yeah.
Thanks. Thank you.
Thank you.
Very good. I'm glad you were doing that, and it sounds like it was a very fruitful endeavor, so thank you. All right, any other questions? Not seeing any. We'll go ahead and go on to the next item, the Budget and Economic Outlook Update. Jill, go right ahead.
Thank you very much, Vice Chair Benoit and board members. So I'm going to provide a similar monthly update to what we've done before at the board and the administrative committee. Can we jump to slide 3, please? So first we start with the statewide comparison of month to month. The refineries continue to be down. They're about 21% from October 2020 to 2019. The ports, however, are continuing to just be bustling. October was the busiest month ever for the combined ports, and November statistics were just available this morning for the Port of Long Beach. And the Port of Long Beach had their best November in their history. They're up 30% over their month last November, and it's the third highest month that port's ever recorded. And they're just behind October, which was number 1, and September number 2. So the ports are doing well, refineries not so good. Statewide unemployment, this is the first time at the end of November that we can report that we're less than double digits. So that is continuing to improve. Can we go to the next slide, please? For year to date, the gross domestic product year to date through October is down a little bit compared to last year, about 12% down. The refineries year to date are down about 18% at the end of October, and ports were down 1.4%. Next, we'll go to slide 5 and start reviewing the metrics for South Coast AQMD. Color scheme reminder, the orange line is fiscal year 19-20. Fiscal year 18-19 is blue, and the most current year is sort of the gray. And you can see revenue is tracking very closely at this point. Next slide, please. Our expenditures also look pretty good. We're keeping a close eye on everything that we can control. So that's looking pretty good. We go next to slide 7. We are really feeling a high vacancy rate. We're over 16.5%. That's not sustainable. We're starting to feel some stress cracks. So we've got some recruitments in progress, and we're going to try and hire a few positions to help make sure we can keep our core functions going. So we're going to try and keep this maybe around the 14 to 15% going forward. But that's been a strain on staff. Next slide, please. This slide shows the NOx emissions from some of the larger sources at the reclaim facilities, and it's continuing to show lower emissions this year compared to the previous month last year. Slide 9. This is perhaps the worst news in this slide deck. November was one of the lowest permit incoming numbers of applications that we've seen in a very long time. It was down 35% compared to the previous year. One thing to note, though, staff informs that in November of last year, about 90 applications were for an upcoming deadline in Rule 1146. So that would narrow that gap a little bit, but it still is significantly lower, and we're down 21% year to date. Let's go to permit revenue. Permit revenue, which lags behind the incoming applications because it's recognized when we finish a permit application, was down quite a bit in November compared to previous months. And this is a $20 million a year revenue stream. So we're going to keep a close eye there. The next slide. Annual operating, which is about 3 times the revenue stream of the permit revenue, is kind of holding its own. So far that's looking pretty good. Next slide, please. This actually looks pretty good. This is very good news. The number of requests that we're getting for payment plans or other relief through the fee review committee are pretty much back down to normal levels in November. So that's actually some good news. And next we can go to the next slide, please. The expired permits continue to be high. We are seeing every month that the numbers go down. So for example, October last month was over 300, and by the end of November, that was down by about 70. So people are making good on a lot of these late payments, but we're still seeing higher numbers than we've seen before. And similar to typical for the last several months, out of the 300 plus potentially expired permits in November, there are a handful of companies that have 8 or 10 permits each that are making up a large portion of those numbers. So we can go to the next slide, please. The last metric we track are the number of CEQA documents that our agency reviews, and you can see that we're continuing to be a little bit lower than we have been before, and it's about 20% year to date. And that kind of gives you an indication of construction and other activity that's going on in the region. The last 2 slides are the summary charts that are there again, just for your convenience, and be happy to answer any questions if you have them for me. Thank you.
I didn't see the last 2 slides.
Oh, I'm sorry. The last two slides and the first two slides are the summary charts that show the comparison month to month from this year to last year, and then the year-to-date totals for the various statistics.
Okay.
So Jill, for that slide that shows, I think it's permits expired,
Yes.
a couple back. Do we know whether some of those are because they've gone out of business or they're just temporarily ceased operations? Is there any way we would know that?
We would have to follow up with a lot of them. For the larger companies, when they have multiple permits, most of them, they're just a little bit behind. We are seeing about 3 dozen of these are dry cleaners which are not renewing their perk permits because they have till the end of the year to do that. So about 3 dozen of those are permits from dry cleaners. Some of them, I'm sure, are facilities going out of business, but we don't really know that unless we follow up with a phone call. So we can look into that and see if we can get a good sense of that. Maybe we can do a random sample of some of them and make some calls or find out. So we could report that perhaps at the next board meeting.
That might be interesting to know. And for those that still have time to renew their permit, do all of them have to renew by the end of the year, or what is the situation with that?
Once they are late to pay their renewal, they have up to 12 months to reinstate that permit, and they can.
Random, like everybody has a different time frame.
Yes. So if you missed it November 1st, you have until next November 1st.
Yeah.
If you missed it in July to July. And then also staff is letting them know that they can get a payment plan for up to 6 months with no interest. So I think that helps a lot of these facilities as well.
Right. Okay, interesting. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Very good. All right, thank you, Jill. Our next item is the update on the information management. Ron Moskowitz, go right ahead.
Morning, Vice Chair Benoit, members of the committee. Ron Moskowitz, Chief Information Officer. This last Wednesday, we deployed a new web-based grant management portal for the lower emission school bus incentive program. Also on Wednesday, we went live with a major enhancement on our new mobile app that features a gridded map providing greater accuracy. And finally, speaking of our app, I'm very excited to announce that we were notified yesterday by EPA that our mobile app was selected for a 2020 EPA Clean Air Excellence Award. The official ceremony to accept the award will take place virtually in January. And we're on track with our other projects, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Very good, exciting news. Any questions, anyone, on any of those items?
I'm looking at it right now, our new map.
Yeah, that's great to hear.
Great. Okay, good.
All right. With that, we'll go on to the next item, one near and dear to my heart, the CV Link status report for Coachella Valley Association of Governments. Matt, go right ahead.
Thank you, Vice Chair. Yeah, and so I just want to apologize. The summary in the agenda is a little bit off. As you may recall, this award was provided to the Coachella Valley Association of Governments for the build out, its construction design build out of the CV Link. At the time of the award, there was also some discussion by the board to ensure that the interest on the award was tracked, but the disposition of that interest was not decided and was to be decided later by the board. So this is simply an informational item that we were going to have Tom Kirk provide the presentation, but my understanding is now Erica Felci will provide for CVAG, and she's here. But the staff wanted to give the opportunity for the committee to see the progress that they're making, and then based on that progress, you could guide us on how you want to disposition of that interest. So with that, let me introduce Erica, and she'll provide the update on the CV Link.
Thank you so much, Matt, and Wayne and Walter. Thank you for the opportunity to come. Vice Chair and board members, my name is Erica Felci, and I am the assistant to the executive director. We had an unexpected scheduling conflict at the last minute, so my Boss sends his regards, and I will do my best Tom Kirk impersonation. And but I do not talk as long as he does, so that is the good news. I think many folks are familiar with CV Link, but we will give a little bit of history and show you some pretty pictures of our progress along the way, and also let you know what's in store for the next couple months. So if you'll forward the slide, please. So a little bit of background on CV Link. This is a kind of a map of the Coachella Valley. And in the Coachella Valley, we have stormwater channels. And they go kind of the length, mostly through the urbanized area of many of our cities. And for most of the year, if you forward to the next slide, they look like this. They're relatively empty, the joys of living in the desert. And for many years, there has been talk of building a bike or pedestrian path on the top of the levee, much where you see the cyclists there. And frankly, folks already use the top of the levee for walking and biking, but it's not that accessible. And and my apologies to the whoever, I wouldn't have done this many animations if I knew somebody was going to click ahead, but if you could click forward, what the results showed on these studies was that it would take 30 some years to build a project like this, and that it would be require a lot of federal and state funding, and it would require an organization like CVAG with kind of broader regional authority to implement. Well, our elected leaders didn't want to wait 30 years. So if you forward to the next slide, one more, they asked, what if it was more than a bike path? And if you click one more, they asked about these golf carts, which were actually invented here in the Coachella Valley. And if you come out to the Coachella Valley, you'll see that folks are using golf carts to get around town now. And they asked about these, if you click once more, neighborhood electric vehicles. I like to describe them as a little bit of a souped up version of a golf cart, but they do have a little bit different qualities. And they are becoming more and more popular here, especially in the desert, as a way of getting around. In fact, if you go to many of our shopping centers, we do have specialized parking for these more environmentally friendly ways of getting around town. So to accommodate this, if you click a couple times, you'll see what we did is we took kind of a traditional bike path idea of this 12 feet, and we widened it to 14 feet. And if you walk or run long distances, you know that the walking and running on pavement is not ideal. So we added a softer decomposed granite pedestrian path adjacent to it. So when we came to organizations like South Coast, we said we had this great idea. And if you click again, we showed you pictures of what the wash looked like. This is actually a picture of the wash you are looking west. To the right is Cimarron Golf Course in Cathedral City, and to the left is the Dream Homes neighborhood. And this is what it looked like. And then if you click again, we said we'd like to build this. And if you click once more, you'll see we built this. And this is our first segment of CV Link. It's pretty close to the rendering. We're really proud of that. This is our first segment of CV Link that did open and has become incredibly popular, particularly in these COVID times. And if you click again, you'll see the same segment from a different perspective, again, also being widely used. So if you click once more, I'll kind of run through these benefits. Obviously, there's congestion relief that comes when you build a widely accessible pathway. CV Link spans more than 40 miles. It runs through many of our urbanized area. And for especially small trips, like going to the grocery store or going to school, this is a way to get out of your car and onto a safe facility. If you click again, obviously getting people out of their cars improves air quality. You can click through this next slide. It's a little bit of a cartoony animation. I probably don't need to tell anyone here the importance of getting folks. You can certainly reduce your footprint, right? By getting out of traditional autos. And the best part, if you click once more, hopefully a little cyclist comes in. Maybe one more time. There he is. And obviously it makes the biggest difference. If you click again. Next slide. Next. There we go. A project like this also creates a lot of jobs. It boosts tourism. And I think I have one more bullet that says that it also addresses safety concerns. If you've come to the Coachella Valley, particularly at night, we love our dark skies, and the result becomes that we have really dark streets. So be able to provide, particularly even in the evenings, right, safe facilities. And many of our roads are really fast, 45 to 50 miles per hour. If we can get folks off of these busy roadways and onto safe facilities, it really does reduce the problem we're having here with bike and pedestrian accident. So moving forward on the slides, this was, if you want to just click through this, it'll build. This is a $100 million project. Many supporters. Thank you very much again. As you'll see, AQMD, we did have an award for 17.4 million. We have other funders that represent, that should stop up. There we go. That should represent the funding support we have for the project. It also represents the diverse benefits of the project. The Desert Healthcare District, for example, we've been very successful at the active transportation program. And this was something we promised early funders, including South Coast, that if you invested in the project, we would go out and we would find the funds. And we've been successful in doing that. So moving forward, if you click to the next one, thank you. Where are we at today? This is the approved route. We did go through the federal and state environmental process. I won't spend the entire meeting talking about the two cities that opted out. It was a bit of a saga, but Rancho Mirage and Indian Wells are not in the approved route, but we do have quite a bit of other pathway we are focusing on. So if you click again, this section that you see here in blue in the city of Palm Springs and Cathedral City is between Vista Chino and Ramon Road. And this was our first segment. It's just shy of 2.5 miles. And if you click again, one more time, we were honored to have your vice chair and Dr. Burke and many other dignitaries at our grand opening. And on a personal note, I actually was a reporter when this idea first came out. I was working for the local newspaper, and I think I wrote more than one skeptical story about this project along the way, particularly with its price tag. Then Supervisor Benoit called me many times about this. So it was a great honor to be able to help with the dedication there in his honor, which is out near the Ramon Road access point. If you click again, we've also built about a mile, one more time, in Palm Springs. This segment also near and dear to my heart. That's my son. He's obeying the 25 mile per hour speed limit that is on CV Link, though it didn't feel like it when I was chasing him on this scooter. But this is near Demuth Park, and it is a really popular facility. This actually used to be a really bumpy bike path that the city had kind of it hadn't always kept up with its maintenance over the years. And when they were doing some levee work, we were able to piggyback on that and build a mile of CV Link. So what's coming next? We went to the CTC, California Transportation Commission early last year, and we worked on a segmenting plan with them to kind of really strategize about what was going to come next. And at the time we said, based on our right of way, we felt really good about 7 miles. 7 miles would be our next segment. Well, we thought, you know what, we can do better. So we really worked on our right of way. We made incredible progress. We've got great partnerships across the Coachella Valley, particularly with the water districts. And we came back to the CTC and said, you know what, our next segment is going to be 13 miles. Well, everybody loves a good catchphrase, right? And 20 miles in 2020 sounded really good, and we got there. So this year, we committed to starting 20 miles in 2020, and that is actually our next segment. So if you click again, you'll see that we are under construction. This is the city of Palm Desert. We're working with the city. Most of the route in Palm Desert is on street. Click one more time. You'll see that if you come through the city, particularly in front of College of the Desert, it's under construction. It's okay. And one more. And this is the remainder of our what we call our 2020 plans. Click again. One more. What you see in green is about 17 miles. We did award a contract in October for close to 53 million. Based on the economic benefit numbers that the federal government gives us, it's about over $100 million. And we're planning on creating a lot of jobs, not just construction jobs, but the ancillary jobs that go along with a project of this magnitude. if you click again, that is our contact information. You can follow us on Facebook. I saw we posted more construction photos this morning, and I will do my best to answer any questions.
Very good. I'll make a couple comments before we go to questions. For my board members, when we see those EV golf carts and other neighborhood vehicles, I'll tell you that growing up in the city of Palm Desert, I can remember back, I think about 96 or 97, when the city took a very active role in striping almost all of their streets where they had the room to put in paths on the roads for those electric vehicles. So it's a very common thing to see a golf cart traveling either to the mall or other parts of the city anywhere in Palm Desert. Also, you see a lot of sidewalks that are probably not your standard width, more about 10 feet wide, so that two golf carts can pass each other just on the general sidewalks in the city. So you see that usage all over the valley, but I would say Palm Desert is probably one of the highest ones, and it really is an incredible, especially when you go to a school or see a school site where the kids are getting let out, and there might be 50 cars lined up, there might also be 20 golf carts lined up. So you are seeing a very good impact of that, and then this is only going to add to that. So this is a huge win for the desert, and I can tell you, like she said, growing up out there, every time you go past the wash, you think, God, this could be something, and it's so neat to finally see it coming to fruition. And we won't get into the drama of the other two cities, but boy, I think it's only a matter of time before their residents start realizing that they're missing out a little bit here, and hopefully they'll start changing their direction. But in the meantime, let's get what we can built, and I'm really excited to hear we're going to have 20 miles in 2020. So that's great, and thank you for that presentation. Questions from my colleagues?
It's a great project. It came out of the mitigation monies for the power plant that we did up in Desert Hot Springs, right? That's where it started.
18.
Yeah, that's part of the funding we give there. Yep.
Right. Looks great.
Very supportive, Ben. I remember when your dad was working on it, and I supported it back then, and excited to see the construction progress. And I can't wait. Hopefully next year, get out there with my bike, join you, and ride some of those 20 miles with Wayne out there with us. Okay.
I'd love, especially the parts in Palm Desert.
Yes.
Now, Matt, there's a question on the interest. Is that something we need to settle today, or and I'll lend my full support to that. That that if they've taken care of the money all this time and they're using it for good purpose, and if there's interest, great. Let's put more miles down. So that's my thought.
Thank you, Vice Chair. That's exactly the guidance the staff needed. So there's about 1.5 million in interest. Based on the comments from the committee today, the staff will go back and we will prepare a board authorization request that will come back to admin committee. Your committee will make the final determination, and then it will go to the full board. But based on your comments today, we will recommend adding the interest.
Great.
Great.
Great. I concur.
All right. Well, thank you, Erica, very much for that presentation, and tell Tom that he wasn't missed at all. You did fine.
Well, I will say I do volunteer him for cycling tours. So for anyone who would like, if you're going to come out, we'd love to have you. Gladly put him on a bike and send him out of our office for a while. Oh.
Perfect. We'll take a day for him.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you. All right. Now on to item number 10, the report RFP scheduled for release. Sujata?
Yes, good morning again, Vice Chair Benoit and members of the committee. Sujata Jain, Chief Financial Officer. This item is a routine item. It is to release our request release for RFPs to establish a pre-qualified list for outside counsel. Happy to answer questions.
Any questions or comments on the list attached? All right. With that, we can go back to the latter part of the agenda. We have our written reports attached from local government, environmental justice, and those boards. Any questions on those two items? Not seeing any other business from our board members? No? All right. Do we have any general public comment for items not on the agenda? Not seeing any hands raised. If you're on the phone, you'd hit *9. If you're on Zoom, you need to hit the raise hand button. All right. Well, with that, I'll move to adjournment. Our next meeting will be January 15th. And thank you all for joining us this morning. And we'll go on. Everyone have a great weekend.
Happy holidays.
Take care, everyone. Bye-bye.
Bye, everyone.
End recording.
recording was ended.
Mark, you and Paul are going to do local business.
Local government, small business, correct. I may be able to hand it off to Paul and Anthony, but
Okay.
I'll get it started.
Do we have presentations?